K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook.
All right, hello everyone. Hello everyone. I am DeSarge. Welcome to a special edition of On Deck. Of course, Big B looks like he's been blacked out. That happens in baseball if you're in selected territories. And also we got Crispy Bacon. How you doing?
I'm good.
You're good. That's awesome. And we got a special guest today, a former umpire, Dale Scott. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. And of course, making an appearance like no other. Big B is in the house, and Big B, I'm just going to let you take off with this.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sarge. Sorry, a little technical issues, so I'm on my phone. Like Sarge said, we got a special guest, Dale Scott, former MLB umpire. So, Dale, to start off, we'll let you have the floor for a little bit. How did you get into umping?
Well, growing up in Eugene, Oregon, I loved baseball. That was my sport. That I was destined. I knew I was destined to be the first baseman for the Dodgers when I grew up. Unfortunately, I couldn't hit, run, throw, or field, and so that kind of altered my playing career a little bit. So when I was 15, and knowing there was no way I was going to make the JV, let alone varsity team in high school, and that was the only two teams. What do you do at 15 when you want to stay in the game? And I was too young to coach. Not that I would have been a good coach anyway, but somebody suggested to me maybe umpire. With my illustrious playing career that I had, I was on the bench a lot to watch the umpires, so I kind of had that in my back pocket. And I thought, this could be something interesting, something fun to do. So I started umpiring when I was 15, and I fell in love with it. It was a challenge. Every game's a challenge. It's the same game. I mean, it's the same rules and everything every day, but you never know what you're going to get every day. And it's and then the challenge to be perfect, which we rarely are, but that's what you're trying to do. You don't want to miss a pitch or a play or anything else. So that I just really was drawn to it. I enjoyed it. I took up football and basketball at the high school level also while I was in high school, and then I continued to umpiring, or actually officiating year round. Somebody had suggested to me to go to umpire school, and at the time that the only way you can get into professional baseball in the minor leagues is to go to umpire school. So I went when I was 21, and was able to finish in the top 5 and sent to a 1-week advanced school. Was able to finish in the top 13 of that 50 of those 50 guys, and I was on my way to my career when I was 21.
Nice. So you sound like you're a Dodgers fan, since that's where you wanted to play first base at. I'm a Twins fan. Crispy Bacon, he's up there or down in Dallas, yep. So he's a Rangers fan. Sarge, Mariners fan. So we're all over the map there.
Well, now I've got to clarify. I was a Dodger fan growing up. Once I got into baseball, I was a fan of no one except the umpires. Yeah.
True. So
Yeah.
So going from the minor leagues to the major leagues, do you get a phone call, or do you have to apply, or how do you get the call up to the big leagues being an umpire?
Well, if you're fortunate enough to make it out of school and get a minor league job out of it, then that's a whole new set of events. You're trying to make your way through the minor league system. Unlike a player, a player could have a really good half a season or something in A-ball, go right to AAA or Double-A, go right to the big leagues, or they can skip a level or two. Umpires have to work at every level, at least some. And so what happens is The minor leagues, you don't make much money. You're on the road. You don't have a lot of off days. You know, if you have a family and stuff, you don't, unless you happen to be in a league that's near your home. You're not going to see home much during the season. The only reason you're in the minor leagues as an umpire is to get to the big leagues, and it's not a career in the minor leagues. So what happens is guys get in the minor leagues. Some will drop out because they don't like the lifestyle or being away. Of course, some are released. Some advance to AA. Same thing. They may get burnout. They may get released. Eventually, you might get to AAA. Now, once you get that far, now the major league umpire supervisors are watching you and scouting you for openings in the big leagues, and then it's just, if you've got the skill and the talent and then the numbers, because quite frankly, when I came up in 1986 was my first year in the big leagues. That's when we were separate staffs. We had the American League and the National League, and I was an American League umpire. I got a job with Tim Cheetah, Minneapolis guy, a Twin Cities guy. Tim and I got hired for the 2 spots in 1986, and from 1987 until 1999 in the American League, there were 3 more openings. So sometimes it's a numbers game. We were lucky to not grab, but we were fortunate to get those spots because we could have very easily not gotten them. And then, if you're kind of the phenom, the prospect one year, a year or 2 later, now there's some new blood in there, and all of a sudden you may not be that. And so, there's a lot of AAA umpires that never made it to the big leagues that have the talent to do it. They just the numbers game, there just weren't openings. But I was fortunate. I spent 5 years in the minor leagues, worked a couple winter balls in the Dominican, and I was hired on April Fool's Day, 1986, which a lot of managers still think is a joke, but it's
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, you got a question to start off with for our ump?
Yeah, I actually do. So I know there's a big thing happening with all the umpires and stuff coming with the future, because AAA is going to start with the robotic umpires. And I came up with my own robotic umpire. I want to know what you think of it. Crispy Pete.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
All right.
Okay.
Sarge's like our tech guy here.
So
there you go.
So is this what it's going to look like?
That's exactly it. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised you went to you are not allowed in the secret lab to see how they're building this thing, but apparently you got it perfectly. Yeah, the automated strike zone. One thing I was told several years ago when we were talking about when they were first implementing in the early 2000s, it was called Questec, and it was the tracking system on pitches that we were going to be evaluated on. And something I was told way back then is that we're never going to outrun technology. Technology, as you know, I mean, you buy a whatever, and a month later, 2 months later, it's already, something's better out there, and something's faster, or something has more, capacity or whatever. So it soon realized with us as umpires, as a group, that we're not going to beat technology. It's going to constantly be changing and getting better and better. So maybe it's best if we get a seat at the table, try to at least make the technology as umpire friendly as possible, as we go forward.
Yep.
The automated zone, people want that. People want perfection. They don't, even though it's not a perfect game, they want perfection. And I my thoughts on it are this: a couple things. One, be careful what you ask for, because I've always said there's an art and a science to umpiring. The science is the nuts and bolts. It's the rules. It's the foundation of how what we do as our job. But there's an art to it also. A simple example would be the rule is the base coach has to be in the coaching box.
Yep.
The art to it is we're not going to enforce that unless the other team complains or he does something that he shouldn't have done. Then we're going to enforce it on both teams. Yep. So an automated system knows no art. It just knows what is programmed in the rule. And the definition of a rule book a strike is any pitch that enters any part of the strike zone, which is a three-dimensional zone that starts at the beginning of the plate through to the point of the plate at the back, and then it's over both edges, the length or the width of the baseball. The plate's 17 inches. The baseball is another 2¼ inches. That means the plate really is another you can almost say 4.5 inches wider than what it is. I mean, 2¼ on each side, because if the ball touches any part in the plate over the plate, that's in the zone. If it's high-low.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have that. So by rule, you can have a pitcher with a lot of movement who throws a pitch that at the very front at the plate, very front part of the plate on the outside corner, it hits that little part of the box, but it's going away from the hitter and it's going down toward the ground, where it's actually caught about 2 or 3 inches outside and right above the ground. Technically, that's a strike. By rule, that's a strike.
Yep.
We don't call that a strike, and the reason we don't call it a strike is because no one wants it to be a strike. Nobody. Well, maybe the pitcher does. Pitcher always wants to be a strike. A lot of pitchers, if it leaves their hand, it's a strike. But as far as the way baseball's played at that level, no one expects that to be a call to strike. Now, the machine is going to call that a strike because it doesn't have the art of baseball. It has the science. All it knows is what it's programmed to do. And so there's nuances like that. Now, my personal opinion, and this is just me, I don't know if it's true or not. I think if it ever makes it to the major league level, it will, in accordance with a change in the definition of a rule. I think they'll change how what a rule book strike is to better conform to the machine. That's my how, I don't know, but I think that for it to work, I think that kind of a change would have to be.
Gotcha. So were the umpires all kind of welcoming instant replay and all that technology stuff, or were they kind of against it?
Well, at first we were very skeptical of replay. But you have to remember, when it first came in, it was just boundary calls. It was just calls between the foul poles in the outfield. If we had a home run, spectator interference, ground rule double, that type of stuff. And really, that made sense because, let's be honest, when you're out, like, especially if you have a day game, a bunch of white T-shirts in the glare of the sun, and this thing is a shot, and you got a bunch of hands down, and then now we got to judge from 200 feet away in one fell swoop. We don't get replays. Was the ball touched? Was it over the line? Was it not over the line? Should have been a double. Should have, blah, blah, blah. And then, we get together, all four of us, and everybody else has seen what just happened. Everybody in the stands sees it on the monitor. Both teams run down the runway. They see it on their monitors. Everybody at home sees what happened, several different replays. And four of us, the four guys that have to call it, go, okay, what do you got? Yeah, I thought it was a home run. What do you have? I think it hit a guy. Oh, what did you have? I didn't see it. The sun. Okay, well, let's go with a home run. It made no sense for us not to have something to aid us. And like I said, a lot of times you have shadows and glare and all kinds of stuff that can play havoc with you seeing the baseball.
Okay.
So when boundary call replays came into effect, we were rather open with it because those are tough calls and they're a long way away, and we look really quite foolish if we say it's a home run when it's obvious the guy touched it, but we didn't see it. Yeah. But then we also knew that once that door was open, replay was coming. We didn't know when, we weren't sure how. But we were pretty confident as a union, as an umpire group, that that's what was going to happen, and it did. So, but I personally, I like replay, and I'll tell you why. It's like I said, you're not going to beat technology. You have people sitting at home with 70-inch, 80-inch screens with super slow-mo heat, infrared cameras and 17 angles and all this other stuff. And we're pretty good, but we're not that good to battle that. And so, I think replay. What happens with replay is even though eventually we'll get the call right, maybe we don't look good doing it, but we got the call right, and that's what people want. They just want the call to be correct. Exactly. Now, another cautionary thing to that is, careful what you wish for, is the fact that replay is not, as we've seen, going to end all controversy. It just doesn't. There's angles. There's sometimes you have the perfect angle, and right when you need to see it, a player steps in front of the camera or whatever the situation may be. So it's you're still going to have controversy. You're still going to have play. I've had plays where one angle it looks out, the other one looks safe. I mean, that's that close, and so it's not going to end all arguments about plays and umpires and that kind of stuff. But I think it is a good tool to correct obvious mistakes and to correct mistakes in critical situations. And to those that say, "Oh, it takes too long," and usually they're the first ones, or they're the ones that were screaming for replay, and now they're screaming it's too long. But you've got to remember also, we used to have arguments, and most of the time, arguments, nothing would happen except somebody would get thrown out. The point I'm saying is, you always had delays in close and big time calls, either if it's with an argument or nowadays with a replay.
Okay. So before we get to Chris's question, Adam has a question. He's a Braves fan, so he's got two. Who was the most intimidating manager you came across?
Intimidating. Let's see. Probably. Early in my career, I had Billy Martin. I was the last umpire to eject Billy Martin, actually, in 1988. Was my third year, and it was the last time he got ejected. He could be rather intimidating, mostly because I saw Billy Martin for years before I even went to umpire school. So I had Earl Weaver one year, the year after he came back from retirement, and had the Orioles one year. But I didn't have them a lot, and I didn't really deal with him much. I've had some managers that are, for the most part quiet, and then they just snap and go crazy like Piniella. Or I've had other managers that constantly just whine from the bench and and it's just a pain in the rear, but really don't say anything to get ejected. They just are all, and quite frankly, I'd much rather have a Piniella who lets you, for the most part, work and then snap. And then be done with it, or versus a guy that just whines all the time.
Okay, then his next question, since he's a Braves fan, he wants to know what your thoughts on Bobby Cox were when you came across paths with him.
Well, Bobby Cox, I was in the American League when he was in the National League, so I didn't have him for years. I had him his last 11 years that he managed in Atlanta. I never ejected Bobby, which is a rarity since he has the most ejections in the history of baseball. But I did eject Tom Kelly, who had 5 his whole career. So there,
we're going to talk about those later.
I guess I ejected nice guys. Bobby Cox was interesting. If you ran into him off the field, in a restaurant or something, or as you were leaving the stadium or something, he was the nicest. He was like your grandfather. Just say, hey, Grandpa Bobby, or something. But the moment he put that uniform on and walked on the field, he did what he had to do. The thing I really respected about Bobby is his philosophy was, I don't win baseball games, my players do, so I want my players in the game. If somebody has to get ejected, I'll get ejected, because I'm not the one that has to hit and pitch and field. And that's basically what he did. I mean, if you look at his teams, Chipper Jones was an outlier a little bit. He got ejected quite a bit, but a lot of his you didn't have just a ton of guys getting ejected off the Braves. Bobby got ejected a lot, but not as players, because that's what he did. He took the heat for whatever happened to keep his guys in the game.
All right, Chris, you got a question for Mr. Scott?
Yeah. Is there a call in today's game that you don't like an official call or something in the rules, I should say?
Is there a call that I don't like?
Right, or you disagree with?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'd have to think about that. I right offhand, I can't think of anything that I just absolutely disagree with. The rule book is poorly written. I can tell you that. I mean, because it'll say things like, if the hitter interferes with a catcher attempting to make a play on a runner, the ball is dead. However, if he throws out the runner, then the out is recorded and you ignore the interference. Well, if the ball is dead, then you just see what I'm saying. Right off the bat, they tell you the ball is dead, but it's not really dead because of this. It's like
so it's kind of like the catch rule in the NFL. Nobody knows.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. They've cleaned up some of the rules. Making guys the slide rule, especially at second base, but it's for breaking up double plays, but it's all around the diamond. I mean, I'm glad they cleaned that up a little bit to make it more, give us more umpires a more. It used to be the slide rule was pretty ambiguous, and we had a lot of judgment and a lot of leeway to where we could determine if it was a legal slide or not. Now it's much more defined, and it helps us to be able to focus on certain things. And if they don't meet that criteria, then it could be a illegal slide. But it's a good question, but I don't have a real quick answer for you.
I forgot the umpire, but the Detroit Tigers perfect game controversy.
I lost my audio here. Hold on.
Oh,
try it again.
All right. So the Detroit Tigers game, I think it was it wasn't Verlander pitching. The one where the umpire called the guy safe in the perfect game. I can't remember his name.
Hey guys, I have no audio of you guys.
Don't have audio? Okay. We're having a little technical difficulties, fans. So we'll wait for Scott to get back with us. Chris, any way we can help him?
There you go. You came back.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was getting to the point with the perfect game that the umpire missed a call on in Detroit a few years ago.
Jimmy Joyce.
Yeah. What was your guys' as an umpire feelings towards him? I guess. I mean, of course, it was a big call. I mean, did you guys, help him out, or how did you guys feel about it?
Well, that's an umpire nightmare. That's just an umpire nightmare. I said if you gone to a movie producer and said, "Hey, I've got this script where the perfect game comes down to one play, and it's the pitcher throwing the perfect game, covering first base, and he beats the guy by a half a step, and they call him safe. Isn't that cool?" And they'd say, "Yeah, that wouldn't happen." I mean, the whole build up to that wouldn't happen. It did, and I happened to be in Seattle when that happened, so I was 3 hours behind, and I just happened to be walking through the stadium. I was going right by the Mariner clubhouse on my way to our clubhouse, and there's a security guy that sits out there, and he has a monitor. He had a game on. He always has a game on when I walk by, and I say hello, but I could hear the game audio, and they're saying, controversial call, but Jimmy Joyce. I saw it. I'm like, I wonder what's going on. I get to the umpire room, and I turn on our TV. I was the first one there. And there it was, the whole thing. They were going over it, and you just feel awful. Jimmy's a great friend of mine. He lives. I live in Portland. He lives in Beaverton, Oregon, about 12 miles from me. And you just feel horrible for him because it could have been me. It could have been any of us making a mistake like that. Jimmy, I talked to him numerous times since then. I've got a book coming out May 1st. I talk about this a little bit in the book.
Okay.
He honestly thought he had to play right when it first happened. I mean, they all know what's going on. It's a perfect game with one out, one more out to go. I mean, everybody knows what's happening. And so, when I've been in those situations with a no hitter or something, I just say to myself, just focus, take your time, don't rush anything. Just take your time, and that's what Jimmy said. I did the same thing. And he goes, that play happened. He goes, I thought I saw it good. I said, he made the call and thought he was right at first, but he saw the reaction, not so much from the fans are going to do that or whatever, but he saw the reaction from the players, from the Tigers. And he could tell that that's not a normal reaction for, that something, everybody here apparently thinks the opposite of what I just called. It wasn't like a couple guys or this or that. Everybody seems to have the same thought process. So, that's his first inkling that something's gone terribly wrong, and it wasn't very comfortable. I think the third out came pretty quickly after that. There wasn't too much of time after that. And so they were walking off the field, and of course, they're just getting screamed at by the fans, and a few of the players were letting them have it a little bit. And the moment he got into the locker room, he looked at his partner. He goes, "Did I kick that call?" And they all went, "Yeah, Jimmy, I think you did." I mean, and that it's you sink. You want to crawl into a hole, especially a call that big in that situation. But anytime that you have a big call and sometimes when you make the call, you do think you're right. I mean, you think you saw it well, and then you find out you're wrong. Sometimes there are times you make it and you go, "Oh, inside, oh, what was that? What are you doing?" But so you reach out to him. He handled it extremely well. The Tigers handled it extremely well.
Yep.
And I'm just glad it was. I'm not glad it was anybody, but I'm glad it was a senior guy, a more veteran guy like Jimmy, because that could really ruin a young umpire's confidence and career if it had happened to somebody like that.
So Adam has a question here about the infield fly rule. A little confusing, hence the Braves versus Cardinals infamous fly rule. I think he's talking a few years ago in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think it was. So,
yeah, that was an absolutely 100% correct call. Okay, Adam, I know you don't want to hear that, but it was. An infield fly does not have to be handled by an infielder. It's just the rule is that first and second base is loaded less than 2 outs, and a fly ball that an infielder with ordinary effort can make the play. And now, how we determine that is if an infielder is going back and he's got his back to the infield, that's not ordinary effort. But once you square around and now you're squaring around for that pop up and you've squared up again, now that is ordinary effort. I don't remember the players' names that this happened, but I remember he went out. He had his back, but he was just kind of turning around, getting ready for the ball to come in, and he was called off, and the outfielder took the play. An outfielder can catch an infield fly. That's not an issue whatsoever. Okay. What's important is where is the infield fly at? In other words, is it ordinary effort by an infielder to make that play? And if it is, that is by definition an infield fly. And an infield fly can be called mere seconds before it's actually caught. It doesn't have to be called at any certain time. It's to be called when it becomes officially by rule an infield fly. Remember, the rule is there to protect the offense, and so because otherwise fielders could just let it drop and get an easy double plays or whatever. So that's that's
a player would never do that. I mean,
never. They're outstanding individuals.
Yeah. So, Sarge, you got another question for Mr. Scott here?
I do. You mentioned something about a book, and I believe I see a book behind you in the baseball. Is that your book?
It's coming out May 1st. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Can you explain more about your book and about the baseball that's right next to it?
Well, actually, the baseball that's next to it was the ball. The Dodgers. January 1st, 2018 is when I officially retired. 17 was my last year, but I only worked 5 games. I got hurt in April with a foul ball, a concussion. That's why I left the field. I was going to work a couple more years. But the concussions kind of, said that maybe I should get off the field now. And so the Dodgers in 2018 invited me to throw out the first pitch on their Pride Night in June. I came out as a gay man publicly in 2014, and I was the first active male official in the Big Five sports to ever come out. And it was something that I write about a lot in the book, as well as some pretty funny stories about the minors and the big leagues and everything else. But it was something that I actively hid, for years, afraid that anybody would find out, and my chance to get to the big leagues would be shot if somebody found out or whatever. But I went full circle to where I actually came out and was on the Major League Baseball Gay Pride Parade float in New York in 2018 and 2019. So it come full circle, and I have to give props to Major League Baseball for being very since they hired Billy Beane a few years back, and just been very proactive in inclusion with professional baseball. The book is a memoir. It's just it's talking about me, how I the minor leagues, the big leagues. It's some funny stories. You know, I was the last umpire to throw out Billy Martin. I had Game 3 behind the plate in the 2001 World Series in New York when President Bush threw out the first pitch, which was just an insane series and an insane time in our country, obviously. And that went 7 games. My other 2 World Series were sweeps. 98 when the Yankees were almost they couldn't lose. They swept San Diego. And then in 2004 when Boston broke the streak, the Red Sox coming from behind in the LCS, 3 games to none, they sweep 4 in a row to take care of the Yankees, and then they marched right into the World Series and swept the Cardinals. Those are my 3 World Series. But it talks about that. It talks about the All-Star games. Talks about just stories. I had arguments. I had a couple funny Lou Piniella stories. So yeah, it was fun to write. I'm looking forward to. I've never, I'm not a writer. This is all new to me. But I had Rob Nyer, who's a longtime baseball writer, that actually lives in Portland, also helped me out, and I'm pretty proud of it. I just hope, I'm hoping. I'm not thinking I'm going to be on the New York Times bestseller, but no. Hopefully people will be interested and we'll get enjoy reading it.
Yeah. So you talk about throwing out Billy Martin for the last time and other Lou Piniella stuff. How long do you give them to argue? And then you're like, okay, let's calm it. And they keep going. I mean, where's your trigger point, I guess?
Yeah, it's not really a time limit. It's more of what they're saying, what's being said. It's more of the situation. Every situation is different. I had players and managers and coaches. They know there's certain things they just can't do and say, and they will be ejected. And then. If a manager or a player says that's a blankety blank call, well, he's talking about the call. But if he says you're a blankety blank, he's just said that I was a blankety blank, and that's personalized, and that's going to get you ejected. But it's funny. I've had situations before where Terry Collins, when he was managing the Angels back in the 90s, we were in Anaheim. I was at second base, and he had they were playing Toronto, and he after 3 innings they were up 10-0. I mean, it was just they're blowing them out. Well, now it's like the 7th inning, and they're up 10-9, and there was a fly ball, nobody on. There was a question of was it a home run or spectator interference? I had spectator interference, so the Angels didn't get a home run off of it. And Collins comes flying out of the dugout, running toward me, and so we meet in like shallow center field with this argument. As he's coming, I'm thinking he's pretty hot. This is going to be a pretty good argument. He comes up and he goes. I said, Terry, the fan reached below the fence line. He goes, I don't give a blank. He goes, we suck. I'm starting to laugh, and he goes, "You can't laugh. The camera's on us." And I said, well, he goes, "Yeah, this is terrible, Dale. I mean, we have a 10-0 lead, and now it's 10-9. And can you believe that? And they're just throwing a bunch of cuss words out about his team, and it looks like he's just chewing me a new one, right? I mean, his arms, and he's screaming, and it's just us two out there, and I've got my hand over just because I'm trying not to laugh. So finally, he goes, "I can't stand anymore." I can't. He goes, "I can't stand. You have to run me. You're gonna have to run me." I said, "Oh, you want to get run?" He goes, "Yeah, I want to get run." I go, "Well, you got to do something to get run." He goes, "Oh, you want me to do something?" And he takes his hat and he throws it about 20 feet. So I eject him. And he goes, "Great." He goes, "That's the best news I've heard." He goes, "I get to leave, and the worst thing about this whole thing is you got to stay here and watch this." And off he went. Now the fans and everybody just thought that, man, Terry got his money's worth. Look at him. He just him, And I'm just, chuckling to myself that the perception sometimes is not reality. Now, let me be honest. That's not every argument. That's far and few between. We have something like that. But it was pretty funny.
Well, Sarge private messaged me, and he wants you to toss him out of the show here. He's got a couple family things, so he wants you to toss him out.
Well. Yeah, you just threw that, and I'm gonna get that.
All right, Sarge, you have a good one. Thanks for joining. All right. So I got some questions here, Chris. If you got one, chime in. When it comes to no hitters and perfect games, do umps save a little something from that game, or are you guys more? Are you sentimental just like the player is when it comes to that stuff?
Well, no, 1986 was my first season. In about 1988, I believe, and I wish I'd done it from the beginning, but I started every plate game I had, I saved my lineup cards. I've got lineup cards from every plate game from 1988 until I was done. But if you have, I had one no-hitter behind the plate, so I had those lineups, and Scott Erickson threw it for the Twins. Over the Brewers in 1994, April 27th or something.
Yep.
So when that happens, usually we have the clubhouse guy. We have game balls that were in the bag. When the game's over, we'll send like 8 game balls to 2 per man for Scott to sign, or whoever. That night was Scott. I had him sign my lineup cards. And again, we have the clubhouse guy just run over and have them do that. And they're listen, they're ecstatic. They're happy to sign anything usually, because they're on a high. They just did something like that. But yeah, we, if there's been certain occasions that Ken Griffey, I forget what year he broke the. I don't remember. To be honest with you, I don't remember the record. It seems like he hit a home run in 10 consecutive games or something. I don't know. I don't know what number.
I think it was
Right. Anyway, it was in the Kingdome where he broke the record, I believe, and I was behind the plate. So after that game, I had the clubhouse guy run over and have him sign my lineup cards, just to have those. So those are those things, but it's a fine line, because as umpires, you don't want to be running around seeking autographs.
Oh yeah, no, I get that. So we got J-Mac joining us. He's one of the guys I was telling you about that lives out in Portland there.
Yes.
Does some football repping. So J-Mac, how you doing today?
I'm good. Actually, correction, I live in Junction City, so.
Well, I grew up in Eugene.
Yeah, I'm sure you know where that is. If you know where Junction City, Eugene.
So he's also
I've umpired in Junction City. I umpired. I've refereed. Absolutely.
So you got any questions for him, J-Mac?
I think I have one, just because it's something that I've wanted to know from umpires that aren't umping anymore. I guess how hard would it be right now to be an umpire and have to check the pitchers at certain times throughout the games, their hats, gloves, belts, all that?
Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the rear. I mean, especially if a guy just gave up a couple of runs or something, and now he's coming off the mound, and you got to go up, and he's not exactly in a great mood, and maybe he didn't get a pitch or two that he wanted or whatever, and now you got to come up, or one of your partners have to come up and say, hey, I got to look at your glove, blah blah blah. I mean, it's just it's kind of a pain in the rear. Most pitchers, they understand. They know that in a perfect world we wouldn't do this, but we have to do this, and so for the most part they're pretty understanding. But you saw, you've seen last year or whatever, a couple times when guys kind of caused problems because they were mad at the umpire, or they're mad at themselves, or they're mad at something. So it's that I'm glad I didn't have to do that, and I think it's kind of a pain in the rear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back to no hitters here quick. Bumgarner's 7-inning no hitter and a doubleheader. Would you consider that a no hitter, and should Major League consider it a no hitter?
Well, I mean, do they consider the win a win?
Yeah.
If one of his teammates hit 3 home runs that game, would he have 3 home runs? I mean, you can always list no hitters by 9-inning plus no hitters and 7-inning no hitters or whatever. I mean, I think if you're going to and I understand with COVID, why the rules were tinkered with. And that kind of stuff, but it just seems a little silly to me that that's not a no hitter, but 2 grand slams in that game would be 2 grand slams or what? I mean,
exactly. No, you're right.
And I understand he's not pitching 9 innings; he's only pitching 7. Okay, fine. You distinguish that in your record book or whatever, you know.
Well, in the unofficial record book for Coast to Coast here, we got it as a no-hitter, so we keep track of it. So.
Yeah.
But
There you go.
speaking of traveling and stuff, I'll do it first here for Minnesota. What did you think about up in the Dome?
Well, I love going to Minnesota. I love Minneapolis. It actually reminds me a lot of Portland, kind of the same size and architecture. Is very similar, whatever. And of course, I'm in Minnesota, not in the winter, which is kind of probably nice, I'm guessing, but I don't know. But that being said, the Dome was not a thrill. It was. It just was. It could be loud, man. They had some great teams back in the late '80s, early '90s. They drew. It was loud in there, and there it certainly saved some rain delays and rainouts and cold weather. When I was, in fact, the night that Erickson had the no-hitter that I was behind the plate, it was in the Dome, and that day it was snow mixed with rain. It was just cold,
I thought I remember like snow mix.
Late April game. Yeah, so that would have been somewhat miserable outside. I don't have anything against domes. I like the retractable. That's the perfect answer, because you have open air, but if you need it, you can cover it. And that just makes sense to me. But I love Minneapolis, and I like their new park. I got to work in that a few years before I left the game. So and it's a neat, very small footprint. I think it's the smallest in MLB. Second to, I think San Francisco's next. But the footprint itself is pretty small. But it's a nice park, and I definitely think better than the Dome. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Outside of that, what other fields did you enjoy up and in or going to?
Well, I had the opportunity to, see a lot of brand new stadiums, starting really in Chicago White Sox in 91 or 92 had, that kind of started the chain of events. Of course, I was in the American League until 2000, but, the White Sox, you had the Orioles, and then Milwaukee, and in no particular order, Seattle, San Francisco. I never worked the Giants in Candlestick in the regular season. I worked a few when I was in the American League when they were played the Bay Series exhibition games. I worked a couple games there, but Texas they're on their third stadium since. I worked the last game in the erector set until and then they went to where they played the last 20 some years, and now they have the new stadium, so they're already on their third. I never worked in the Astrodome, but Houston. I just saw a lot of new ballparks. Toronto, we were the first crew to work in Toronto at Skydome, the first 3 games in 1989, I believe. New Yankee Stadium, the new Mets. So I've seen a lot of new ballparks and Detroit. So it's I like a lot of. I think Cleveland's one. Quite frankly, Cleveland and Pittsburgh, I think are Pittsburgh's a beautiful ballpark. Pittsburgh is just a gorgeous ballpark with the city background there. It's just they did a really good job there. I think Cleveland is a very nice park. The lines and the kind of the personality to it, if you allow me to give a personality to it. I think that Seattle, San Francisco are very cool parks. I like Colorado. Of all the new ones, the ones that are maybe not quite the A level is maybe Detroit. Just doesn't. It's fine, but it's just not quite. Doesn't have quite the personality of some of these other ones. But there's some, I saw, I worked the World Series in Old Busch Stadium, and, now they've got the new one, which is nice. So I've seen a lot of them. I have a lot of favorites, very few that I dislike. The Kingdome was a pain. The one I really don't like right now is Tampa. I mean, come on, that's arena baseball. It's you got.
You hate that
like
one worse than the Coliseum in Oakland?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. Well, at least the Coliseum's outside. And one thing about the Coliseum I like as an umpire, it's got a ton of foul ground. We love that.
Yeah. Hitters didn't like that.
No.
So, Chris, you got a question for Scott here before we get to the Hall of Fame?
Sure. Is there a player that you just like, watching their game? Like you enjoyed reffing or umpiring, I should say.
Well, you're out there doing a job, so you're not watching the game like a fan does, But there are times at third base, especially like a third base where they're, sharp shot into the hole, and the shortstop goes way in the hole and fields it and spins around and throws this insane throw at first base. Where as a third base umpire, I have nothing going on. I have no runners, I have no plays, so I can just watch it. And you just think, wow, that was insane. Or you see some circus catch some guy has, and you're not the covering official, where you can kind of just watch it and not necessarily. Have to deal with it, so to speak. But these are unbelievable athletes out there, and practically every day that I was out there, and that might be exaggeration, but practically every day you saw something that you just proved to you how good these guys were, and how talented they were, and it's just I feel very fortunate that I had the chance to do that for 32 years, watching. Some of the greatest athletes in the world, and certainly in baseball, do their thing.
All right, J-Mac, you got something for him?
I got one last question. Being from Oregon, living in Portland, being in this area, do you think that Portland could ever sustain a Major League Baseball team?
Well, I know you're going to.
Well, that's a good question. Portland is right now, the Portland metro market is larger than I think 5 current major league cities, major league markets. That being said, Portland only has really, and it's really not technically in Portland, but Portland has only one, I think, Fortune 500. I could be wrong on that, but Fortune 100 for sure. Business, Nike. I mean, for example, I believe Portland's very compatible to Pittsburgh in size and that kind of stuff, but Pittsburgh has 5 or 6 Fortune 500 U.S. Steel, and they've got I don't know who else, but and the reason I say that is corporate sponsorship, and in those cities is very important to ball clubs and to sustain not only their sponsorship in general, but I mean to buy the luxury suites and and things that a lot of these big businesses and corporations and big sponsors do. And Portland, even though it may be a larger market than Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, just off the top of my head, Kansas City, I think, but I'm not sure if it has the corporate bones and structure that you need for a major league franchise. Portland, in my mind, would absolutely have to have a retractable roof. If they have a stadium. The other thing about people in Oregon, as they cherish their nice weather in the summer, and we just have a lot of people that aren't necessarily sports people. They're going to hike and fish and go to the coast and go up to the mountains and stuff, and might not have quite the appetite for something. To answer, it's a long answer here. I think they can. I think they could, but I think there's still a lot of hoops and a lot of things for that to be a reality. And I'm still not 100% sure that even if it all happened and they got a franchise and the whole thing, that it could be sustained. But I think they could. But getting a franchise, getting a ball club is the tough part. I mean, either an existing one that's moving or a new one. There are so many things that I always say, so many hoops you got to jump through, and so many things that have to line up for that to happen. They're a long way away from that, I'm afraid.
All right, one more question from Adam. It's been on there. It's pertaining to perfect game and no hitters. Do umpires kind of expand the strike zone to help the pitcher get that feed, or
no?
Okay.
You're aware of it, but you got to. Now I'm not going to lie. Back in the day, when we didn't have pitch tracking and cameras everywhere, and a lot of games weren't even on TV and stuff, you might get an expanded zone when you're in the last inning of a no hitter or something like that. What you are doing, is just don't miss one. Do not miss one, and you're gonna if it's a borderline pitch, trust me, it's gonna be a strike. Okay, I mean that because he's earned it, and it's borderline. And borderline means it can go either way. And so if you're gonna go either way, you're gonna go strike. But you can't. You just don't look good, and you do not. You lose credibility if you take an obvious outside pitch and call it a strike just because the guy is about ready to wrap up a no hitter or something.
Gotcha.
It's just as an umpire, you're aware of what's happening, but you're not caught up into this excitement of what's happening. You're caught up into the focus of doing your job, what's happening. And every umpire, not just the play guy, because if you have that bang bang play at first, it could be a infield single if it's safe, or the end of the game. I mean, you got to be ready. You just have to be ready to do your job, and you're a little bit more on your toes in that situation because you know what's out there.
All right. So the reason why we had this special show today was the announcement of the Hall of Fame. And Chris, you can give the honors.
Yeah.
Who is the member of the 2022 MLB Hall of Fame?
The class of 2022 of the Baseball Hall of Fame is David Ortiz. That's it.
All right. Are we all shocked that it was just one, or Dale? We'll start with you. What do you think of Ortiz getting in, and what was he like as a player?
I'm not surprised he got in. From everything I read, I thought, it would be close, and I think he had 77% or something. So he had a few votes more than he needed. The guy was clutch, especially in postseason, but he was clutch. I remember him in Minnesota before he went to Boston when they really, they designated him for assignment after I don't remember which year, but he was, he struggled as a DH and as a first baseman.
Lee Croy over him.
What's that?
We kept Lee Croy over him because we thought Lee Croy was going to be the power guy, and
right.
So
right, but he struck out a lot in Minnesota, and he was, of course, he was young in his career and he's trying to figure it all out. Yep. But it got all turned around in Boston, obviously, and I had the 2004 World Series with Boston, and when they broke the streak, I had the 2013 LCS when they beat Detroit to get to the World Series, and he had a dramatic 10th or 11th inning home run or whatever it was. In Fenway, that the place, I think they're still cheering. It went crazy. So I mean, the guy, he certainly is deserving with the numbers he's put up and stuff. Am I surprised about anybody else? The air is sucked out of the room when it comes to voting for the Hall of Fame with the steroid issue and all of that, and it has been since 2007 when McGuire was first on the ballot. I think it's going to be interesting with the big three, Bonds, Schilling, and Clemens off the ballot now. This next 10-year period, 9 more years now for A-Rod is going to be interesting because it's a whole. You're going to get a different. The voters are going to evolve, and you've got 3 of the big names, for better or worse, about PEDs off the ballot now, so they're not
Nope.
sucking that oxygen. So does that mean A-Rod gets more consideration? Does that mean it hurts him more because he's the only right now big PED guy, on the ballot? I mean, it'll be interesting to see as this plays out, how his vote total goes and that kind of stuff. There's no doubt, Bonds, Schilling, and Clemens, have the numbers or have the talent even before they were even suspected of PEDs. I mean, these are Hall of Fame players, and I don't think there's really hardly any writers that don't deny that. It's just that their own thought process of who deserves to be there and that kind of stuff, I think, is what has been playing out and has been the topic when it comes to this HOF voting. Like I said, since McGuire was first on the ballot.
Okay, J-Mac, how about you? I know we kind of talked on another show. What did you think?
It's rough for me because if I had a Hall of Fame vote, would I vote for them? I would. And the biggest reason for me, and you're welcome, Dale, to correct me if you think that I'm off on this, but for me, pre-1998, for Clemens and for Bonds was already a 3-time MVP, and Clemens was already a 3-time Cy Young Award winner by then. They were already Hall of Fame players before the steroids came into play for them. So for me, they are Hall of Fame players, and I stand by that. I think that they are Hall of Fame players. Unfortunately, they went the PED road, and that made them not get elected in traditional Hall of Fame status, I guess. But that's just how I feel. I think they were already Hall of Fame players. A-Rod is a different story for me, for sure. But I think with Rogers, with Clemens and Bonds, they were already Hall of Fame players before the steroids came into play.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the voters voted that way or thought that way, is that these weren't guys that got their Hall of Fame numbers because of steroids. These are guys that had Hall of Fame numbers and then decided to use steroids and go that route.
Yeah.
Others have said, I was watching some of the coverage earlier. Others have said they agree. They were Hall of Fame before that, but it's the integrity of the game, and a lot of people or thought process. If you're that good, why do you have to do steroids? If you're that good already, why the heck? Now the other side of that coin is, well, because I want to, if other guys are doing it, I'm at a disadvantage. I want to be at the same level playing field, and that's the whole problem with the steroids to begin with. Is the guys that don't do it are being penalized, and the guys that think they have to do it to maintain and stay, relevant. Yeah.
So, Chris, what did you think? David Ortiz being the only one in.
I mean, I'm glad for him. I know he was a good player, and I've seen him play a little bit, and it's good that he got in. As for the ones that didn't, the Baseball Hall of Fame is kind of interesting in a way, because you have like the Hall of Fame for the NFL, and I think it's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 people going in, whereas the baseball is like maybe as many as 3, but it could be, no one getting in, and it just depends on what the voters think. So, I mean, they all deserve to get in one way or another, but I can see why they decided not to put them in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy for Big Papi getting in. I know it's a slim chance of him wearing the Twins cap when he goes in, because they all know him as a Boston Red Sox, but hey, I mean, it is what it is.
Right.
Last question we got before we wrap up the show. I know.
Can I add one more thing about Hall of Fame?
Go ahead.
We need more umpires in.
Yes.
There's, I think, 10 that are in, and they are only considered like every 5 years or something, or maybe 4 years. It depends. I forget the committee that can, but they're in the group of umpires, executives, people that have contributed to the game or something. So they're lumped in this other group so they even if there's a couple 2 or 3 4 really strong candidates for the position and should be, in my opinion, in the Hall of Fame as umpires, they still fall short because that committee, whatever it is, only votes 1 or 2 people in every few years, and they're in the same group of executives and some others, and I just think it's there's some outstanding, unbelievable umpires that I think are deserving at least for a vote.
Okay.
At least.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to start pushing that on our end here. But
Yeah.
Talking with J-Mac and Chris over the this past year, I kind of know what their thoughts are. Since it is Hall of Fame weekend, it's always been brought up. What's your thoughts on Pete Rose, in or out?
Well, by the numbers, obviously in. Pete's biggest problem was A, betting on his own team, but also B, never fessing up to it, never, fighting them the whole way when it was obviously he did, and it just was the wrong thing to do. But you know what? I think it's time. I mean, I think they've got casinos and they're with DraftKings now, and they've got baseball's changed a lot since all that went on, and I think maybe it's a little hypocritical that at this point that he's still not considered.
Yeah, no, I think if anything, he gets in and they just say that he's the all-time hit leader and don't talk about his managerial career, but that's just me. But I think we're all in agreement that he should be in. So with that being said, Dale,
I have one last question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
You brought up Pete Rose. Dale, if you had ever had, and I'm sure you had an umpires association because that's usually how that works as far as the union and stuff, correct?
Right.
And so if you had found out, if the other umpires had found out that, say, someone was making calls or getting paid off to make different calls by a booster, different players, whatever, would that kind of guy be kind of outcasted as far as, we don't talk about him anymore in the umpire world? Or
absolutely. He would be completely ostracized. He would be shamed. He would be because if somebody does that, it reflects on all of us, and all we have, the most important thing, and really all we have when we walk on the field is our integrity. And if you don't believe, you may believe that we're wrong, or we may have missed a pitch or a play, but if you believe we made that mistake on purpose for some other reason, then we've lost all credibility and all integrity, and the whole shooting match is done. So absolutely, that is the most cardinal sin you could have as an official, more than if they found out maybe he was doing illegal drugs or something. That's not good. But if you're purposely missing or changing calls for some nefarious reason, besides just because you happen to miss it, that is the worst you can do.
All right. Well, Dale, we appreciate you having on. We'll keep in touch. But before you go, why don't you promote your book again and possibly where we can get it and when it's coming out?
Well, it's you can pre-order now on Amazon or Barnes and Noble and other outlets. Powell's Books in Portland you can pre-order. It's called The Umpire Is Out: Calling the Game and Living My True Self. It'll be actually physically out on May 1st. I'm just now setting up some promotional trips. I'm going to hit, hopefully, I've got 5 or 6 right now that I think are not definite goes, but we're an inch away, where I'm going to be at their Pride Nights and doing some book signings and stuff. Okay. But I'm very excited about it, and you can pre-order it now if you'd like to do that.
All right. So you guys hear that. Chris, any final thoughts?
No, it's a good show. Thanks for coming on, and hopefully we'll get some baseball coming up.
Yeah. Keep the faith.
Yeah, J-Mac, you got any final thoughts there?
I don't think so. I just it's no. Thanks for coming on. It was great to hear from an official and a different point of view than all of us just.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah.
And thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no problem. Maybe once we get some Uni Talk going, maybe we'll have you back on, Dale, and maybe sometime through the season we'll have you on if you got the time. We always love to chit chat. But for that being said, this was On Deck. I'm Big B, Crispy Bacon doing the production, J Mac joining, and MLB former umpire Dale Scott. Thank you for being. We'll see you all next time on Deck. Have a good one.